have to wonder whether you're living in a free country when governments behave in this fashion. A law is supposed to be made. You have a green paper, you have a white paper, you have a first reading, you have a second reading. It goes to the House of Lords for revision, it comes back for the third reading, then there's a pause. Once it's finally got through all its stages in the committee stage, but while we wait for royal assent, this law never went through any of those procedures. It was just made by a minister, and it existed. And I'm not at all sure that a free country can last for a very long time if an individual minister has that kind of power, especially if he uses it in that way.
So that's quite a serious concern. So I've got my last question here, which follows on from that. So in your last column, you wrote that if people want this kind of situation to perpetuate, then they just do nothing, right? So do you have any suggestions, because if we're asking people to do something, do you have any suggestions as to what they might do?
I have a very specific thing. I'm a great believer in the rule of law. I don't want to advocate any kind of law-breaking or civil disobedience, because I think these things can lead very rapidly to dangerous circumstances. But what I do think is that people should remember they have members of Parliament who are supposed to be protecting their freedoms, and whose job it is to hold the government to account. They're not doing that job. And I think MPs have to be aware, especially with an impending economic crisis, which may create a political crisis too, that people have noticed that they're not doing anything, that they've ceased to perform their function. They should write and say, what is it that you're doing for your money, for the very considerable salary and expenses which you get? What are you doing? You're not acting as MPs. I think that's a good start. What I can tell you about MPs is there's one thing they're really scared of, and that's losing their majorities and losing their jobs. And if they think that enough people are concerned about the fact that they're sitting there doing nothing, then they will actually respond. It's not write politely, acidly, but politely. Don't be rude, but just write and say, what is it that you're doing there for this money we're paying you? And it's time we heard something from you. We're sitting here. People are losing jobs. The economy is falling to pieces. Our children have been deprived of months of education. The universities have been disastrously affected and stood out here. Every single part of the economy is in trouble, and our personal freedom is being risked. The government's ruling by decree. What are you doing about it? Why are we paying you? And the more people who say that, the more worried they'll get, the more likely they are to start holding the government to account. I can think of nothing better at the moment. I'm happy to listen to anybody else's suggestions, but that's the one I've come up with.
We will make America great again.